Welcome to my channel where we cover the lore of Final Fantasy XIV. We cover the stories both big and small, the epic and the cute, the silly and the tragic. I hope you all enjoy the ride, and welcome to the Chronicler of Lore. In the city of Ul'dah, the Warrior of Light runs across a guy who claims to have seen an old man from the Far East show up at the arena and offer to fight anyone who thinks they can beat him. Then he proceeded to thoroughly beat each and every person who tried with some seriously impressive swordsmanship. The man claims to be a samurai, and of course the Warrior of Light is eager to see how well she stacks up against him, especially since there's been some mention of a treasure if you can beat him. The only catch is you have to fight him with the same weapon that he uses. Not like that'll stop you. When you walk up, the old man can sense that you're a strong fighter and may be exactly what he's looking for. He introduces himself as Musosai, and he is indeed a samurai from Higashi. He lets you borrow a katana and a soul crystal so you can absorb the memories of the last samurai who held the stone. That way you'll at least know which end of the sword you're supposed to use on him. With that done, the two of you step into the arena, but before you can duel, a gladiator by the name of Betrayal, who the old man already beat, comes running into the arena wanting a rematch, this time using his own weapon. No one likes the guy, mainly because he's a sore loser. You can't agree to the rules of a contest, then claim the other guy cheated because you weren't as good as he was. Showing off a little bit, Musosai cuts Betrayal's blade in half, which makes the idiot run away and let you get back to your duel. You're obviously no match for the man, not fighting with the unfamiliar weapon, but he is impressed with how fast you start to catch on, and he declares you the victor. He lets you know that the treasure he was offering was training in the ways of the samurai, a very valuable gift indeed. Before you can even give your answer, Betrayal comes back, quite unhappy to hear that he got humiliated and there wasn't even any money involved. Not like he could have won it anyway, something Musosai points out, which is why the man came back with friends this time. Musosai still won't fight him. Instead, he sends his new pupil to do it. After seeing you in action, he's positive that you can take them all with no problems. After you pummel his allies with the announcer narrating the fight, Betrayal charges Musosai only to get beaten without even making the man draw his sword. He apologizes for making you fight the gladiators, but it did let him know that you would make an incredible student. He'd been searching everywhere for someone worthy of his knowledge, and he couldn't find anyone in his homeland, so he left. They were too traditional there, and it limited them, so he decided to come to Eorzea, a place he mispronounces as Air's Ear, which, now that I say it out loud, isn't really that far off. He went straight to the place where the best fighters were supposed to be, and after a while, he got lucky and found you. He just hopes you accept his training, which of course you do. Now that you're officially his student, he explains a few things to you about his homeland. A long time ago, Higashi went through a bad time called the Age of Blood, where a lot of different groups fought for dominion over the land. That was when people took up the katana and the samurai were born. When the land was unified under one banner and peace finally came to the area, the regular citizens put away their weapons and the remaining samurai took on the task of keeping the peace. Now the samurai hunt down criminals to bring them to justice so the Age of Blood never comes back. They're like the Justice League, only their justice involves poking holes in people with sharp objects. Now that you're on the path to becoming a samurai, Musosai will take you around Eorzea fighting evildoers as a part of your training. So you literally just became the sidekick to a vigilante master of martial arts. Unfortunately, that makes you Robin, but beggars can't be choosers. So the two of you get ready to hunt down some bad guys in Ul'dah when Momozigo, the Lalafell who had been announcing your fight in the arena, shows up. He managed to make a lot of money off of the fight, and now he wants to follow the two of you around because he believes that there's a chance you'll help him make even more money. But he's not planning on being useless. If you want to hunt bad guys, he has a lot of contacts who can help you track down some villains, which will be useful since Musosai doesn't know Eorzea at all, and the Warrior of Light is practically a mute, so she won't really be able to give any good directions. Momo and Musosai have already worked together. Musosai saved his life from some bandits he'd been trying to recruit to fight in the arena. Then Momo had guided him to Ul'dah, so there are no objections to him coming, so he gets to work on finding some bad guys, while you get more familiar with your new weapon. With Ul'dah being a haven for all things degenerate, it doesn't take long for Musosai to pick a target. There's a moneylender who hunts poor people to scam. He charges crazy rates for his loans, then when people can't pay, he makes them into slaves. And with all of the poor people living in the area, he has plenty of targets. You talk to the people at Stone's Throw who know exactly who the guy is you're looking for, and he's far worse of a person than even Musosai thought. A young woman borrowed some money for her father's medicine, and even though she's paying her bill on time, he keeps increasing what she owes so he can sell her to one of his clients. Lucky for you, and not so lucky for him, the moneylender shows up to take the girl while you're standing there. Of course, you get ready to murder the creep, but Musosai stops you. If you fought right there, you could have made things worse since technically he is conducting semi-legal business. He never forced people to borrow money from him or agree to his terms, so you need to wait for the right time to strike, especially since the man's not working alone. Instead of stabbing him, you follow as he takes the girl. He meets up with some members of the Brass Blades who are apparently taking the woman as payment to let Philip conduct his business without any legal ramifications. Now that is definitely illegal. Seeing how the corrupt guards are a part of this scheme, it's time for you to step in. You take down the guards, leaving only their leader alive, and you tie him and Philip up while Momozigo goes to get some more of the Blades, ones who have been trying to link Philip's money lending to one of their own officers. What you've done is saved them a lot of legwork, so at the end of the day, the girl is happy, and the Brass Blades are happy. Not bad for your first mission as a samurai. Now that you've done some good in Ul'dah, Musosai wants to go somewhere else, so your next stop is Limsa Lominsa, a place that is definitely full of criminals. Honestly, the only city that really isn't is Gridanian. The other city-states have a whole lot of problems. It doesn't take long for Musosai to find a big problem in the city. There's a serial killer in the area who uses a really sharp sword, a lot like the ones you carry, which made the Yellow Jackets bring Muso in for questioning. Since he has a pretty solid alibi, like only just arriving in the city that day for the first time in his life, it doesn't take long for him to be released. Since he and Momo offered to help with the investigation, the guards let them see the bodies, and the victims were definitely killed by a katana. The fact that the murderer is using a samurai's weapon is something that Musosai will not tolerate, so he wants to hunt down the killer, which means it's detective time. After chatting with a few people, you find that the victims have nothing in common except for the fact that they disappeared near the docks, so the killer may just be grabbing whoever passes by his hunting ground at a convenient time, which makes him more dangerous, but easier to catch in a trap, if you use the right bait. And since anyone would be stupid to try to attack anyone as well armed as you and Musosai, the lucky decoy is Momozigo. The plan works. Momo walks along the dock at night, and a Lalafell dressed like a ninja comes at him with a katana. Momo screams, making the other Lalafell run off, but not before Musosai gets to see the sword. He recognizes it. A rich merchant had gone to Kugane and bought a unique katana that he wanted delivered to his ship. It was the same one the killer held, and the merchant was said to be a Lalafell, although Musosai mispronounces that and calls him a Laughabell. Momo immediately thinks of Gegaruju since he's a rich Lalafell who likes exotic things, but while he's weird and a crook, he's definitely not a murderer. Still, he's your only lead, so you go to see him. Of course, he's not the killer, but he has an idea who it could be. There's a Lalafellan merchant named Garumi Boralumi, who even Gegaruju thinks spends too much money, but the guy is obsessed with anything from the Far East, and he's collected a lot of katanas. Recently, Garumi was showing off one of his weapons and talking about how he wanted to see what it was like to stab someone with it. Nobody believed him, but he apparently was serious. He lives on a ship which is docked nearby, but it might not be for long. It's not going to be easy to sneak on a ship, but fortunately Gegaruju has an invitation to go to a banquet on board that he gives to you so you can deal with the psycho. The guy's a rival businessman, so it's not like he's doing this out of the goodness of his heart. Gegaruju is still a jerk, even if he is sometimes useful. You make it onto the ship without any problem since Momo disguises himself as Gegaruju before using the invitation. Of course, as soon as you get close to Garumi, he realizes that Momo isn't Gegaruju, but the person he had been about to stab a few nights back. He has no problem admitting what he's done, and even when Musosai says that he's not going to try to bring Garumi in alive, the Lalafell doesn't flinch. He decides to turn the whole thing into a show for his party guests. So you all head on to the deck where he has a bodyguard with a katana who claims that all it takes to be a samurai is to use that weapon. Musosai wants to teach him the error of his ways, but first you have to deal with his hired ninja henchman. Musosai uses this as another training opportunity, and after you take down a few of his guards, Gurumi sends his pet monster after you. So your master steps in and one-shots all the remaining shinobi while you deal with the monster. Then you get to take down the fake samurai while Muso comments on how bad the guy is at fighting. You cut him down and chase after Gurumi. The man has heard of Musosai, and now that he knows who he is, he understands why his guards lost, but he stupidly thinks that he can fight you, and gets executed for his trouble. While he's glad you dealt with the murderer, Musosai isn't all that pleased with how weak your opponents were. Samurai need to fight people on their skill level to grow, and the frauds you dealt with won't do much for your growth. So it's off to somewhere else while Gegaruju cleans up the mess you made. This time you're headed to Gridanian, although Momozigo seems a bit reluctant to want to go there. When you reach the forest city, Momo wanders off, and when he doesn't come back, you and Muso look around for him only to find out that he had a criminal record in the city and was arrested as soon as they saw him. He hadn't done anything major, so they weren't all that focused on him, so he took the opportunity to run away. Last they saw him, he was headed toward Ixal territory in the North Shroud. The guards don't plan on chasing him out there, so if you want to find him before he gets dead, you'd better hurry. You save him from a few of the members of the Beast Tribe who were going to do some horrible things to him, and now that he's safe, he tells you what happened. He was organizing a concert, but the singer bailed on him at the last minute. He had a big debt to pay, and no way of paying it, so he ran away with the money he made on the advanced ticket sales. Now he's scared that Musosai will kill him too, which the man acts like he's gonna do. But since Momo has been working hard to do the right thing since that day, killing him would ruin all the good he could possibly do if he kept going the way he has been. But he does need to pay all the people back and apologize before you all leave Gridanian, which he happily runs off to do. All of the travel seems to be getting to Musosai since he's far from a young man, but he feels good that he's managed to accomplish his goal of finding a strong student near the end of his life. Although he does have one more goal left to accomplish, and it's the true reason he was in Eorzea. He is trying to track down a disgraced samurai named Kogarashi. He is the embodiment of evil, and while Musosai had a chance to take him down before, he failed. Kogarashi was even stronger than he is. But none of that's your problem, and instead of saying more, the two of you go to track down Momo, who has paid his debts and is now free to come and go in Gridanian as he pleases. With that done, your merry band of do-gooders heads off to Ishgard. Ishgard's another city with a lot of problems, and it doesn't take long for Momo to hear some unsettling news. Apparently a couple threw themselves off of a cliff in the Western Highlands. They were both lowborn, but a young nobleman named Enfreint wanted the girl, and he stalked her until the couple decided to end their lives since they would never know peace otherwise. While the man's deeds would be worthy of punishment, you can't go around stabbing folks on rumors, so the three of you split up to see if the rumors are actually true. The more you find out, the less it seems like the deaths were suicides at all, but as you and Musosai discuss what you found, you hear Momo screaming in the distance for help. When you get to where you heard the scream, and Ellison lets you know that Momo was asking about the suicides when someone grabbed him and carried him off. With no more time to waste being subtle, you and Musosai go to confront Enfreint directly. The nobleman admits that he tried to make the couple break up, but they didn't kill themselves. Enfreint had brought the girl to his family's manor, and she had found out about some of his father's illegal business ventures. He had tried to make his dad let it go, but he wouldn't. He had some men take the couple out to the highlands and get rid of them. It broke Enfreint's heart because he really did love the girl. If his father's men took Momo to the same place, then they're on their way to the Black Iron Bridge right now. You save Momo from the mercenaries, but the strain starts to take an even greater toll on Musosai. In typical stubborn old man fashion, he shrugs off your concerns. Now that he's visited all of Eorzea's major cities, he just has to find Kogarashi and deal with him. Watching you grow during your travels has made him think that you may have grown strong enough to fight Kogarashi if you find him, which makes Muso proud that the kami helped him find a student who could help him reach his goal. But before you continue the hunt, you all head back to Ishgard. Momo thinks something is wrong, and he gets a doctor to look at Muso only to find out that he's very, very sick. He probably won't live for that much longer. Honestly, he shouldn't have even been strong enough to draw his sword, let alone do all of the traveling and fighting he's done. It makes Momo wonder just what did this Kogarashi do to make Musosai go to such lengths to put an end to him. Now, if any of you have ever met an old person, you should know that even if a doctor tells them what they should do, they probably won't listen, and Musosai is no different. He's supposed to stay in bed, but he leaves. You search the city for him, but he actually finds you first. He brought his own medicine, stuff that gives him his strength back for at least a little while, and while he's on his feet, he finally lets you know everything about Kogarashi and his crimes. The man is responsible for training a serial killer who took down a lot of Hingan leaders, and the way things work in his homeland puts the blame for the deeds on both the student and the master. He was ordered to take his own life, but instead he ran away to Eorzea. Leaving him alive despite what he caused is something that tarnishes the name of the samurai, so he has to be taken down. But Musosai has failed to do it on multiple occasions, but he thinks you can do it. You can beat Kogarashi. So as your final test, Musosai wants you to find him and bring him down. The man's been staying in Kurthus at a place called the Twin Fools, and as you head there, Musosai wants you to think on how horrible a person has to be to put their own life above honor and duty. When you reach the location, Musosai reveals to you that he's Kogarashi. He had a student who he took around in the same way that he did with you. They fought criminals together, but in the end his apprentice turned bad and he ran away instead of taking his own life when he was ordered to. He's tried to, time and time again, but he just can't go through with it. Since he couldn't do it himself, he decided to train someone until they were strong enough to bring him to justice. The Warrior of Light, of course, doesn't want to do that, but Musosai draws his sword, giving you no choice but to fight him or die. Even as a sick old man, his skills are top notch, but with him having to fight off his own illness and you, he's beaten. Now all that's left is for you to give him an honorable death, but Momozigo rushes in, having followed the two of you. He's shocked to see what you've done to Musosai, but he lets him know that it wasn't your fault and he welcomes the death. But as a samurai, like Musosai had done for Momo and Gridanian, you use your authority to absolve him of his crimes, counting the deeds he's done to make up for them as a just penance. He's proud of the samurai you've become, and with that, he finally succumbs to his illness and passes on. The two of you take Musosai's body and bury him per his wishes, where he can face the western seas, so he could watch the sun head back to the east, to the homeland he knew that he would never see again. After burying Musosai, the Warrior of Light and Momozigo parted ways, but after a while you go to see how he's doing. Things have been going well, but a woman recently came by looking for Musosai, a woman who looked like a samurai. Momo couldn't bring himself to tell her that Musosai's dead, but since you were his student, he figured the news would be better coming from you anyway. She's out in front of the quicksand in Ul'dah, and she's not going to be hard to spot in the very out-of-place clothing that she's wearing. You introduce yourself, and when she finds out you were Musosai's student, she's overjoyed until you tell her that the old man is gone. Her name is Makoto, and she's a member of the Sekisegumi, the police force in Kugane. She came to Eorzea to find Musosai, but since he's dead, she wants to pay her respects, so you take her to where he's buried. While Musosai was disgraced for not killing himself after his student Ugetsu had murdered some government officials, Makoto saw his leaving as a way of atoning by training a new student to bring him honor by bringing down his rogue student. Ugetsu isn't just out to murder people, he's a revolutionary who has a lot of samurai gathering behind him. They remained hidden for a while, but it's been said that he's reappeared in Kugane and is getting ready to attack. That's why Makoto had come for Musosai. She wanted him to help, but since he's gone, she'll have to go back alone. Not long after she returns to Kugane, she sends a letter to you, letting you know that the situation is way worse than she thought. Ugetsu's faction has been doing so much damage that the Sekisegumi are having a hard time fending them off. Since you train with Musosai, your help will be the only thing that could turn the tide of the battle. Momozigo thinks it's rather poetic that Musosai's first and last students are going to fight, because he knows that you're going to go help. He's right, of course, and so it's off to Kugane you go. When you reach the city and ask for Makoto, a member of the Sekisegumi lets you know that she was leading a mission to Sakazuki where members of the Rogue Samurai's group were supposed to be meeting, but she should have been back by now, so since the soldier can't leave his post, he sends you to find out what happened to Makoto. When you find her, it's just in time to save her life. A Warrior of Light has some incredible timing, don't you think? Apparently the entire secret meeting was set up to lure them into a trap. Makoto's partner didn't survive, and she wouldn't have either if you wouldn't have showed up. Hingans live by a strict caste system where your status comes from your parents. Her partner's family had been poor, so he had moved to Kugane since it's more free than the other districts. He became a samurai so he could change the broken system of their nation, just like most of the other members of the Sekisegumi. None of them were raised as warriors, but they all took up the sword to make their nation better. Ugetsu and his allies want to change the world too, but they're willing to burn it to the ground first to get it. On the surface, that's a good idea. It's easier to dig up a weed-filled garden and just start over than it is to actually clean it out. But if the government of Higashi falls, the different ruling lords will go to war and the Age of Blood will start over, which is why Ugetsu needs to be stopped. Back in Kugane, after Makoto gets you to agree to help, she decides to take you to their captain as long as you don't let him know that you're Musosai's student. Having the same teacher as the guy who's causing all of the trouble will make you a suspect, so it's best to keep that a secret. Only Sheedan, the guy who sent you to find Makoto, knows who you are, but he's a little more open-minded than the others. He goes to get Captain Kongo, who is not in the least bit willing to trust you. Since you're a foreigner, you could be anything from a part of Ugetsu's group to an Imperial spy. But Sheedan and Makoto vouch for you, so he decides to let you stick around until you prove you're untrustworthy. Then he'll kill you. His distrust doesn't come out of nowhere. The way they were ambushed on their last mission means it's likely that there's a spy in their group. To make matters worse, Tairo, one of the most influential men in the nation, decided to schedule a visit to Kugane, which means Ugetsu will likely try to kill him. The second Segumi will be out in force to ward off any attack, and they'd like your help when the time comes. Makoto has other duties to tend to, but she wants you to stay in the city so you'll be close if they need you. It's a good thing that you do, because when you go back to meet up with Makoto, she lets you know that the captain has apparently ended his own life to atone for his failure to catch Ugetsu. At least, that's what the letter he left by his body said. To make matters worse, Tairo is on his way, which has Kugane in so much chaos that they haven't even had time to perform the funeral rites for Kongo. Sheedan is trying to keep everything together because Ugetsu is definitely going to tear it apart. Everyone's on high alert, and Makoto will be grateful if you join her on her patrols. While you search around for signs of anything suspicious, you find a charm that's covered in blood, one that was always on the captain's neck. Makoto would recognize it anywhere, but she has no idea how it got to the docks, which makes you question whether the captain killed himself at all, especially after Makoto admits that she didn't actually see his body. It could have been Ugetsu's people who actually got to him and faked the note to make it look like he did himself in. But if that's true, then the Sekisegumi definitely have an intruder in it. Knowing that, you and Makoto race off to let Sheedan know that there needs to be more security around Tairo because the enemy is definitely already in the city. Tairo is supposed to be at the Thavnarian consulate, but he has a habit of sneaking off to the houses of pleasure when he's supposed to be working. Apparently he has a fondness for cat girls. So you race off to find him because Sheedan shouldn't be too far away from him. When you find Sheedan, he lets you know that he has it all under control and you can head back to your post, but Makoto has a question. When you walked up, Sheedan had his sword out, however there were no enemies around. So what was he doing? Since he's being questioned, he reveals the truth. He was the one who set Makoto up. He had hoped for the trap to kill the both of you, but he hadn't expected you to be so good with the sword. Makoto can't understand why he would turn on the captain like that, but Sheedan had seen firsthand how horrible the nobility of Higashi were. His parents were treated terribly, and when they spoke up about it, they were burned alive in front of a crowd of villagers. On that day, Sheedan vowed to change the nation. That was why he became a samurai. But after he joined the Sekisegumi, he realized that they were nothing more than the enforcement arm of the nobility. They weren't bringing about justice. They weren't changing anything. But Ugetsu is different. He has a plan to bring real change, and Sheedan plans on being a part of it. Makoto tries to plead with him, but her words can't negate his experiences, so there's no choice but to fight. However, if you fight where you are, someone innocent could get hurt, so Sheedan leads you off to a secluded spot so you can settle things. Sheedan's good, but it's 2 against 1, so he's outmatched, at least until his men arrive. Apparently, quite a few members of the Sekisegumi had sided with Ugetsu, far too many for the 2 of you to handle, but a very alive Captain Kongo shows up with his own men to even the odds and reveal that Sheedan had been the one who tried to kill him. With the numbers even, you beat Sheedan and cause his allies to retreat, but instead of letting you take him prisoner, he ends his own life. Having seen how you fought with Makoto, Kongo apologizes for how he acted when you first arrived. You helped more than you may have realized. Without you there, Sheedan may have very well started the collapse of the entire nation. But Kongo does think it's ridiculous how anyone would have thought that he would have ended his life before dealing with Ugetsu and his army. Sheedan had called Kongo to discuss something important at the docks, but when he got there, Sheedan attacked him. The sneak attack hit his charm, which saved him from dying as he was knocked over into the sea. He used the opportunity to let them think he was dead so he could track down the other traitors, which led him to your fight with Sheedan. Since that's all done, and Tairo is safe, you can go back to the barracks and plan your next move. Not all of the traitors were as dedicated to the cause as Sheedan, where they would finish themselves off, so Kongo and Makoto are able to learn a bit about Ugetsu's plan from them. Sheedan had been recruiting the people that he could and killing those who wouldn't join, while Ugetsu made plans from his base somewhere in Yangsha, so you still have a lot of ground to cover before you can find him. After searching through more of Sheedan's things, Kongo found some letters from Ugetsu that mentioned some ruins out in Yangsha that could be his base of operations. But with Sheedan's death, Ugetsu probably knows that you'll find his base soon. However, he can't run away because that'll make him look weak, so he's either going to wait for you to finally come to him, or attack you himself. If the man does come, Kongo believes that only the two of you would possibly be his equal in combat. Anyone else likely wouldn't stand a chance, so he will stay at the base in case Ugetsu attacks, while you and Makoto check for him in Yangsha. You search the area finding Ugetsu's henchman but no sign of him, which means he had gone to Kugane. You and Makoto rush back just in time to see a duel between Kongo and Ugetsu, one that Kongo loses. When he loses, Ugetsu sees Makoto and reveals something unexpected. Her name is actually Kagetsu, and she's his sister. That news is surprising to the other members of the Sekisegumi as well, but the Warrior of Light doesn't care about any of that, and she draws her sword to prepare for battle. Ugetsu can tell by your stance that you were Musosai's student, and the one who beat Sheedan. He had once walked the same pointless path as you, and with your skills he thinks it's a shame that you're standing in the way of what needs to be done. But your interference only made him move things forward faster. He has a lot of people fighting for his cause, and the time for hiding in the shadows is over. It's time for his open war against the leaders of Higashi to begin, and the first step was getting rid of the captain so the people of the Sekisegumi could decide for themselves whose cause was the right one to fight for. He even offers Makoto the chance to join him. She refuses, and I don't know whether or not I fully agree. If you believe the leaders of the nation are corrupt, which she does, and you're fighting to change things, which she is, then why would you think you could do that without bloodshed? People who are in power aren't going to change their ways out of empathy for the lower classes of people. Why would they without incentive? Violence isn't always the answer, but it is an answer, and it's an effective one. Ugetsu's words don't work on Makoto or many of the others, but he doesn't want to fight in the city. His issue is with the rulers, not the citizens, and he doesn't want them to get hurt. So he wants you all to meet him at the Isles of Beko, where your people can face off against his. But Makoto may not have many supporters now that people know that she's related to Ugetsu, which is bad, since the captain's dead, she's now the leader of the Sekisegumi. When Ugetsu leaves to prepare for battle, Makoto lets you know that what he said was true. He is her brother, and her real name is Kagetsu. They were born into a samurai family, and her brother had always been a skilled swordsman even at a young age. They had a good relationship, and she was proud when he had been chosen to train under Musosai. But when he went off with the sword master, it was the last time she'd see him for a long time. When he came back, he was different. He'd gone from being a cheerful boy to an angry man who had a strong dislike for the great lords and for the state of the country. After that, he stopped training with Musosai and started teaching Makoto the sword. He had planned on waging war way back then and had wanted his sister prepared to fight and survive the battles that would come. Then he murdered a high-ranking official, and Makoto's family was executed as punishment. She barely escaped that fate, ran away to Kugane, changed her name to Makoto, and joined the Sekisegumi for the sole purpose of punishing her brother. She blames him for the death of her parents, but to be honest, the fact that the government murdered them as punishment for what their son did is proof that Ugetsu's right, and the government needs to be purged. But Makoto knows that she can't beat Ugetsu, and to make matters worse, her supporters are fading away. In their culture, your birth defines you, and once it was revealed that she was Ugetsu's blood, it'll be hard for them to follow the family member of their enemy. But she still plans on fighting, even if it means her death. Her dedication doesn't stop members of the Sekisegumi from abandoning the organization, and with so many gone, you don't even have the numbers to fight Ugetsu. If you can't get them back, then it's a lost cause. So you and Makoto go to gather up the soldiers so she can try to convince them to fight. They show up, and at first they don't want to listen, but when you reveal that Musosai had roamed the land under the name of Kogarashi, fighting criminals around the world, they realize that the man their nation had labeled a criminal was really a hero. But that doesn't change how they feel about Makoto. Very unexpectedly, Momozigo comes running up, and using his knowledge of Musosai, he tells them how he pretty much thought that the people of Higashi's views on tradition makes them stupid. They worry so much about a person's birth that they don't worry about their worth. The fact that they think Makoto is bad because her brother is extremely stupid, since anyone with eyes can see that she's fighting against him. To make matters worse, all of the Sekisegumi are former farmers and peasants who fought to change how people looked at them, yet they're judging Makoto the same way they were judged. Hearing it out loud from someone that doesn't come up past their kneecaps makes them feel pretty stupid, and they all get ready to head to the Isles of Beko to do battle. Ugetsu is strong, but you prove to be the more capable of Musosai's students and you defeat him. The battle decided whose cause was the righteous one, and reluctantly Makoto strikes her brother down, ending the threat of Ugetsu and saving Hingashi. With the mission completed, Makoto is made the official captain of the Sekisegumi, and the true story of Musosai has been spread among the ranks, clearing the old man's name and changing the way the history books will talk about him, from a villain to a legend. After fighting Sin Eaters on the first, the Warrior of Light comes back home to Kugane to check on Makoto. You arrive right when she's getting ready to head to Eorzea to see Musosai's grave and to let him know that Ugetsu's been dealt with. Since you're there, you decide to take the trip with her. That way you can see Momozigo too. When the two of you make it to Ul'dah, Momozigo's busy setting up an event, so the two of you head off to the grave at the Silver Bazaar while you wait for him to finish what he's doing. The town's gotten more popular since you've been away, and there are a lot of people dressed as samurai, which is kinda strange, but you both ignore it and visit the grave, where Makoto tells Musosai how not only did you deal with Ugetsu, but you saved his reputation. He's no longer a criminal. The people now view him as a hero. Satisfied with what she's done, Makoto's ready to leave. However, the sound of someone yelling nearby draws the two of you. You spot a guy that you met a long time ago berating two people who were dressed like samurai for disrespecting Musosai's memory by wearing the gear that they don't deserve yet. The man is Ostergrain, the fake samurai who you beat up when you and Musosai were hunting the serial killer in Limsa. Turns out the beating you gave him made him turn over a new leaf, which is enough to make you forgive him since the evil within him has been excised. After he saw what a real samurai was, he sought out Musosai for training, but when he found out he was dead, he started to visit his grave every day for inspiration. At first the place was peaceful, but lately someone started telling the story of Musosai's mission to fight off evil at the quicksand in Ul'dah, and people have been dressing up as samurai and going to the grave ever since. Ostergrain hates seeing the fake samurai. They're even more fake than he was, but Makoto lets him know that Musosai would be happy to have his story making people want to follow in his footsteps. And he didn't mind the crowds. Knowing that, Ostergrain asks you to train him in the ways of the samurai, but of course you're way too busy for that. Makoto, however, offers to let him train in Kugane, which is a dream come true for the big man. Since it's such a long journey, Makoto doesn't mind his company on the trip back. But first, you have to go see Momozigo, because he's definitely the only person who could be telling Musosai's story. You all join the crowd gathering at the quicksand and watch as Momozigo tells the tale of the legendary sword master, his quest to make the world a better place, and of his apprentice, the Warrior of Light, who still strives to carry out her teacher's wishes to this very day. This concludes the story of the samurai, at least for now. If you enjoyed this video and my other content, like and subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee for my work, sign up to be a member of the channel. Until next time, guys. Later.